I see is not real. All I touch, I cannot feel. All I have will fade away. All I speak, I'll never say.
For the last week and a half, I've been noticing little things happening, but now it is starting to get to me. It started with watching videos or TV. I will be watching, no buffering, and high Wi-Fi points, etc. Then, whatever has been said on whatever I'm watching will repeat itself with no issue, and then carry on. For example, I was watching a video and the girl on the video said, "I don't know what is going on, but I don't like it." She took a breath and then said the exact same thing again, word for word, exactly as she just did. When this first happened, I thought nothing of it, but then it started happening on my phone too. I started rewinding videos or restarting movies to see if it was uploaded that way accidentally, but they were all normal. I tried to brush it off, but a couple of days ago, it started happening while talking to people. I would be talking to someone, then they would repeat what they just said exactly the same as if they didn't just say it. At first, I could try and logic my way out of this weird occurrence happening while watching YouTube or Netflix, etc. But now, I don't know how to logic my way out of people speaking to me face to face. When I ask them why they said it again, they are adamant that they did not. I've asked the people I live with if they have been experiencing this, but no one has. I started mouthing the end of sentences when it happens, but they look at me as if I'm batshit crazy. But to me, they literally just said and did the exact same thing only moments before. No idea what is going on.
This happened about 3 weeks ago. I had the day off work and my cousin Harold asked if I could drive him to pick up new tires for his truck. They were being sold in a town just over an hour away, and basically it was a 2-lane country highway, straight shot all the way there. About halfway there, he points and says, "Hey, look at that house over there. It has vultures all over it. I've never seen that before." Sure enough, on the left side of the road was an old 2-story country farmhouse with 7 to 8 vultures sitting on the roof. There was another 3 or 4 circling the property overhead. Immediately, I blurted out that maybe they smelled something dead inside and we just stared as we drove by. Anyway, we got his tires and it slipped from our mind. On the way back, we had the windows on the truck down, when suddenly we got a good whiff of rotting flesh, and sure enough, we were passing by that house again, but we didn't stop and went home. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I called Harold to tell him so. He said that he couldn't even sleep as it was bugging him too. I proposed that the right thing to do was to go back to the house, get the address, and call it to the police for a welfare check. What if someone was dead inside? What if they had family? He agrees, and we immediately set off. As the title suggests, we couldn't locate the house. We drove all the way to that town where we got the tires, then turned around, and we couldn't find it on the way back either. It was like the house ceased to exist. There was no house, no vultures, a smell of death that matched what we saw the previous day. We even went out and did the same thing the next day with no luck. But now, the more I think of it, what we saw made no sense. Although it was a country highway, there still had to be thousands of cars and trucks on it every day, not to mention police patrols. Surely, one of those would surely have noticed a creepy old farmhouse with a shit ton of vultures on it and put 2 and 2 together. I still can't explain it, and it still bothers both me and my cousin.
I live in very rural southern Appalachia, and yesterday I was going over to the next county to look at a lawnmower. It's an area I'm very familiar with, although I haven't been to the area in over a year. While on the way, I came upon a town that has never been there before. Now, there is a small community there, and it was by the same name, but this was a full-fledged small town. Had a couple of red lights, a main street with probably 15 to 20 storefronts, everything. I was so taken aback I stopped in the middle of the road. After a few moments, a car behind me honked the horn, so I pulled into a parallel spot and got out. Now, the small towns in my area are all the same. Tiny, dingy, run down. Had a heyday in the 50s and 60s, but all have fallen into disrepair. Not this one. Everything was pristine and new looking. Swept sidewalks, shiny windows, and clean brick. The people I saw were dressed in modern clothes and had the same appearance that most people in the area have. Healthy but weather-beaten and aged beyond their years. The vehicles I saw were fairly modern, new to 20 years old, nothing out of the ordinary. I walked into the little restaurant, Cream of the Crop Cafe, and it looked like every other little restaurant in the area. Booths and tables, a bar top with a register, and the kitchen behind it. Some cheesy James Dean and Marilyn Monroe pictures on the wall. I walked up to the girl at the counter and asked her where I was. She seemed puzzled, because I could tell she knew I was local by my attire and my accent. But she said, Minneapolis. I said, so this is Minneapolis. When did they build all this? Again, she looked puzzled and said, I don't know, the 1800s sometime? I couldn't handle anymore, so I just left, got in my truck, and went on to look at the lawnmower. On my way back through, about an hour later, there was Minneapolis, like it should be. A couple of houses and an old general store. No town, no red lights, no cafe, no sidewalks. It freaked me out, something awful. I've never experienced such as this, as I'm pretty mundane and boring. It wasn't a hallucination, I don't think. Everything else was the same. It wasn't a dream, so I don't know. So, 3 years ago in 2019, my husband and I were talking about the Mandela effect while we were at a kids' museum. There was a Berenstain Bears exhibit, along with probably 100 Berenstain Bears picture books displayed on the wall, and a large banner with Berenstain Bears titled across it. Berenstain being Berenstein. I remember it being really crazy for us to see that spelling of the show because we both grew up watching the show, and it was always spelled Berenstain Bears, Berenstain. So later that evening, we also had a conversation about it because I was heavy researching the Mandela effect and the Berenstain Bears. And on top of that, I remember just feeling really off and weird about the spelling. Like I knew it was Berenstain. I don't know how to explain the feeling, but the spelling felt wrong. So anyway, fast forward to now, and my life is so completely different. I have a son, a career, my family members have evolved, and a lot of my perspectives have completely changed. I just figured that time does that sometimes. But now I'm pretty sure I've changed realities, and I'm back to my original timeline, or a similar timeline to the one I originate from. Here's why. I was at that same kids' museum today with my son. I heard a woman talking to her son, and she mentioned the exhibit to her kid. But what caught my attention was how she said the name of it. She pronounced Berenstein, and initially, I was like, okay, wow, that's weird of her to say it like that. Like, even in the intro song, I remember it being pronounced Berenstein. So at that point, I just wanted to check for myself. Well, I was actually frozen in shock and almost worried that I was actually dreaming, because it was spelled the initial way I remember it as a child, Berenstain Bears. And I flashed back to the memory of the conversation with my husband. I know it was spelled differently that day because we were talking specifically about the spelling. I don't know if any of this is making any sense. Hopefully you are able to follow along. So then I start Googling everything about the show. And it's been spelled Berenstain all along, with the A. So I believe I was originally in this reality/timeline and then somehow shifted to the one where it's spelled Berenstein, and then shifted back to this one. But now I'm questioning everything I know and everything I see. Literally, I can't stop thinking about everything that could be different or changed, and where the me that was in this reality went to. Not to mention what happened to the reality or timeline that I just came from. I feel like I don't belong here. Like I replaced the person who belongs here. I can't explain it, but I'm so freaked out and confused. Has anyone else had any experiences like this?
When I was in 10th grade, my classmate Julia asked me to accompany her to meet her friend in a different class. The class was quite far, and after a while, we returned to our class. Since the hallway was so crowded, I walked behind Julia and was about a meter apart. I saw Julia enter the class, and when I was about to enter the class, suddenly, I was already sitting in my chair with Sarah. I don't remember how I made my way to my seat, but I was suddenly eating chips with Sarah. I saw Julia enter the classroom, and Julia screamed when she saw me. She was very pale and kept saying that I should be behind her. But suddenly, another memory entered my head. I walked out of class with Sarah and bought some chips in the cafeteria when the bell rang. We went back to the classroom and ate some chips together. Before I could say anything, Sarah told Julia that she had been with me the whole time. Because Julia was a bit hysterical, some students tried to calm her down, but they all said that I had indeed returned to class a few minutes ago. I didn't say anything about me actually remembering that we went to another class together, because I didn't want to be thought of as crazy, and I didn't know about the glitch's existence at that time. Julia's friends in another class didn't see me because I didn't enter the class and I just played on the phone in front of the door. But she remembers Julia telling her that I accompanied her there. None of the other students saw me going with Julia during that time. Julia and everyone thought that this was a ghost story, and Julia got a lot of amulets from the temple that day. I don't know what happened that day, but I certainly can't tell Julia that I actually went with her. Everyone, what do you think really happened?
This is one of the biggest personal glitches I've ever had. I work in the admitting department of my local hospital and also help the business office with miscellaneous billing duties. One of the things I do is keep track of obituaries. When someone's obituary appears in the newspaper, I check it to see if they still owe the hospital money. If they do, I clip the obit, fill out a form, and then keep track of how their insurance pays and whatnot. A few years ago, I've worked there 20 plus years. One of my co-workers in the dietary department retired and passed away soon after. I know because I processed her obituary. This co-worker's daughter was really good friends with my cousin, so the daughter was even over at my cousin's house the day after my co-worker's funeral. They had a big wake for her mother and everything. Today as I'm working ER registration, the daughter comes in and says her mum is in the ER. I was brought up short. I thought, what? I didn't say anything for a moment, so my office mate had to step in for me and look up this lady's mother. Sure as shit, it's the woman who died years ago. My office mate lets the daughter back into the ER to see her mum, and I am unable to find the obituary form I filled out. Edit 1. I heard back from my cousin, and he's as weirded out as I am. Co-worker's daughter has no memory of the wake or anything, but she said she's been getting this stuff from the people around her for the past few days. People remember her mum dying, even funeral details and the like, but co-worker's daughter doesn't remember any of it. Plus, her mum is right there. It's freaky. Edit 2. Spoke with my cousin instead of texting him. Co-worker's daughter said it was her dad that died and not her mum. But she also said that it's not the way any of the people who run into her remember it. They're asking where her dad is, how he is today. He's not answering his phone or texts, etc. And to her, the man has been dead for over 10 years. Edit 3. I've been asked if I had any close calls or moments where I could have slipped from one universe to another. And yes, there was one. It was a little over 2 years ago. I was getting my evening medications together, but I was tired and screwed them up. I ended up taking an entire full bottle of glipizide, which is a medication that lowers your blood sugar. I accidentally took enough to kill a horse. I realized it right as I laid down for a nap due to the extreme exhaustion, and I felt really weird going to sleep. Looking back on it, I think I fell asleep forever there and woke up here. Edit 4. While the vast majority of you all have been lovely, I've been getting some really angry replies and private messages about what happened with the glipizide. I'll post here what happened to me with the medication, and I don't know what more I can add. This is how the incident occurred. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but take your vitriol and anger somewhere else, please. Here's what happened. I take a lot of meds for a lot of stuff, epilepsy, diabetes, etc. So I have a lot of empty pill bottles lying around. That day, I had an empty pill bottle with the label still on it, so I figured I'd just grab all of my evening medication doses out of my bedroom, take them to the dining room, and just swallow them with dinner. I've done it loads of times before. Like I said, I was tired that night, so when I pulled out my bottle of glipizide, I got my dose and then accidentally closed the bottle with my evening meds in it, put it back where the bottle of glipizide went, and then took the full bottle of glipizide with me to the dining room. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't look at the bottle when I took my meds that evening. I just threw the pills back and swallowed them with dinner. The pills were tiny, and all I noticed was that they didn't feel quite right in my mouth. Because the idea of taking a whole bottle of pills seemed ludicrous to me. What kind of idiot would do something like that? Well, me apparently. When I stumbled back into my bedroom, I checked the bottles because something was very, very wrong. I discovered the rest of what should have been my evening meds in the bottle I had mistakenly put in the glipizide place. That's when I saw I had downed a full bottle of glipizide. I wanted to grab my husband, holler, shout, do anything, but my body was made of lead. I could only crawl over to my bed and flop on it, and when I woke up, everything was fine. That's what I mean by going to sleep there and waking up here. I don't think I woke up there. I think I died there and woke up here.
My fiancé and I live in a small 3-bedroom apartment with my sister and our dog Champ. Our floor plan has our living room and bathroom on opposite sides of the apartment, with our kitchen right in the middle. Anyway, this happened a few weeks again during that super bad heat wave, and our AC had just broke. My sister wasn't home and my fiancé and I were eating some ice cream in the kitchen, just trying to beat the heat. Now, Champ has had this weird habit lately of hanging out in the bathroom and peeing in our bathtub. I assumed it was to cool off on the cold bathroom tiles, and I didn't think much of it because I'd rather him pee in the tub than on our furniture. My fiancé, however, does not like the idea of Champ peeing in our tub. She thinks it's gross. Well, anyway, we were eating our ice cream and we had heard what sounded like paws walking around in our bathtub. For the record, there is nothing in our bathroom, or our apartment for that matter, that would be able to reproduce the sound of a dog's little paws scratching around in a bathtub. Well, my fiancé yells out for Champ to get out of the bathtub, but there's no Champ to be found. My fiancé gives me that do something look, so I yell out Champ's name. And all of a sudden, we hear the sound of Champ's collar rattling around and the pitter-patter of his feet coming towards us as he emerges from the living room. My fiancé and I stare at each other in a Nosferatu from SpongeBob moment. So, who was in the bathroom? We both walk over to inspect the bathroom, and there's nothing in there. What we heard was unmistakable. I mean, we both heard it, and there wasn't any type of background noise or music or TV playing in the background that we could have mistaken for it. Our walls aren't paper thin, so it couldn't have come from our neighbors. We don't have rodents or past, and the only thing that I can think of is maybe it could have been a mouse or something. But even that doesn't make any sense. There are no signs of mice droppings anywhere in our house. And what would even be the odds of a single mouse coming and going? Plus, no way a mouse or even a rat would be heavy enough to make such a loud noise in the tub.
I hope I don't sound crazy and someone can help me here. It was a late night. I don't remember the exact day, but it was around October of last year. I was in my girlfriend's basement. We were just winding down from a party. We had smoked a bit of weed from a joint, but I swear, I did not take that much, like maybe one hit of a joint at most. And we had just gotten into bed. The last thing I remember is me closing my eyes. I woke up and I was on a surgery table. I heard surgeons talking about the tools they were using and every detail of the operation they were talking about, cutting into the back of my head and my upper spine. I heard them talking clearly and felt the pain of every single cut they performed. I heard them talking about how I was waking up and I was in shock. I couldn't understand what was happening and what was going on. I tried to stop it and wake up. I remember fading in and out of reality. I would wake up to see my girlfriend and her friends looking at me in shock like I was dying. I could see them crying and a look of concern on their faces. They were on their phones with their significant others, trying to ask for help and whether to call the police or not. I woke up again and my girlfriend had a look on her face that I will never forget. I was looking at extreme sadness. It looked like she had seen me die and was holding on to me as if she was saying her final goodbye. I was now in even more shock. It was becoming concerning. I would drift in and out of this state and back into my surgery and back into reality where the people closest to me were trying to wake me up out of this. I would feel the real pain of getting cut open and the pain of seeing everyone concerned for me. It was a lot to comprehend at once. It got worse before it got better too. It was at the point where what my friends were saying would be different from what I heard. I would hear one of them say, "I need 20 milligrams of something." Like they were nurses and they were talking like they were surgeons at a hospital. It was scary to me to hear that. I would look at them weird, and they would look back at me and laugh. Things just kept on shifting, and all of a sudden, I heard the sound of a drill and felt an extremely sharp pain in my back, and I screamed. And then I just felt nothingness and was in a daze and stared at the ceiling for a minute or two. Then I felt like I finally woke up, and a wave of relief slowly came over me. I heard my girlfriend say, "I love you." I looked at her and she was crying. After that, the night proceeded as normal. Little did I know, this would not be the last time this would happen. I didn't talk about this to many people as I feared no one would believe me, and just brushed it off as a nightmare while I was awake. This almost exact scenario happened once again a few months later. Only I was at a friend's house and heard these two doctors talking about their shifts and what was happening on the weekend, their plans. And I saw my friends moving in ways that, once I questioned if had actually happened, it hadn't. I again felt the pain of being opened up. I felt my shoulder and bones cracking under pressure. I felt my head being cut open. After that night, I seriously questioned if that was just a dream. I told people, and no one believed me. They thought it was a nightmare and started to question my sanity. Third time, at a restaurant almost a year later, this happened very recently. My girlfriend and I were at a restaurant and it started happening. I heard people around me talking about me and my movement and hoping I didn't touch my head. You see, in these nightmares, I would always feel like I was injured and my head or neck was opened up, and I could hear surgeons talking about how they needed to fix something and sedate me harder. It was like they were doing an annual repair on me. This time the sequence was fast and my girlfriend was crying. She told me to drink water and sit up, and when I did, I felt my back pop and bones crack, and I went away, and I returned to normal. All three of these felt far stronger than some dream. What's more, no one dreams while they're awake. These experiences were far too real to not talk about. I wouldn't hope this on my worst enemy. It has made me question everything. I strongly believe there are some forces out there that we have yet to understand. I don't know if I'm just crazy or if something sinister is happening. I have some theories. I think that we humans may be stuck in some matrix simulation. I highly doubt many people have experienced this. I just hope I'm not alone. I need answers, and I never want to experience it again, as this has messed me up mentally and ruined my view on life. I believe we may be in a situation. I woke up and now got stuck deeper into it. I fought my way out all those times. Or again, I may be crazy for thinking that. Thank you for listening, and I hope to hear some theories or any input at all. Let me know. Thanks. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.